Let's talk some more about President Bola Tinubu's nationwide address on Monday. The president approved provision of buses to the students' bodies of all universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education across the country. This was disclosed in a statement by Special Advisor to the President on Special Duties, Communications and Strategy, Dele Alaki. President Tinubu says his desire is to see that students can access their campuses without much difficulty as a result of higher transportation costs. He noted that the provision of the buses will also remove the burden of additional cost of daily commuting on parents and guardians. The statement also noted that President Tinubu has equally approved the removal of all restrictions on the student's loan to make it available to any student or household that may desire it. He further directed the authorities in all federal institutions of higher learning to avoid arbitrary increase in sundry fees payable and, where possible, defer further increase so that parents and students do not face too many difficulties. Joining me now to speak more on this and the President's broadcast is Azeezat Lawal. He's CEO Connected Development. He joins us via Zoom from Abuja. And joining us from our Abuja studio is Speaker of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, Dr. Azeezat Yishawu. Thank you, gentleman and lady, for joining us on TVC News at 1. Let's begin with you, Azeezat. The President on Monday addressed Nigeria's current economic challenges. What is your assessment of that broadcast?
Well, thank you for having me. It's really exciting. The President's communication was clear. He gave back faith and hope to the Nigerian people, and it was really presidential. You know, he talked about the economy. He talked about how he's going to ensure that plans are rolled out to cushion the effects. You know, we've never seen this kind before, and I hope that the President would ensure that every quarter at least he speaks to the Nigerian people. It was really presidential.
And very quickly, let's bring in Azeezat. As a youth parliamentarian, how did you receive that announcement from the federal government of provision of free buses for higher education students?
Yes, I think that the address by the President was quite inclusive, and I think that this time around the actions rolled out in order to support young people and students as well is a well thought out process. And I think the idea of having buses available for student union across the tertiary institution is one step closer to getting, or relieving the effect or impact of the recent economic policies on students who are, of course, most vulnerable, young people who are most vulnerable to some of the effect of the new economic policy. So I think that what is most important for us, as students and young people, is to see how this process will be implemented and how, government agencies and parastatals who are involved to ensure that the purpose to which those buses are to be used for are being used for, and then other aspects such as ensuring that the staffs for driving those buses, the petrol will be readily available, and whatever the schedule is to convey young people or students from various places to campuses, and also within campuses as well, because we have some universities that are quite very, very large, and then commuting from one department or faculty to one another is a sizable distance. So the idea to have those buses is great, and we'll be looking at what implementation strategies will be adopted for it to be effective.
All right. And also, the federal government has announced removal of restrictions on student loans, as well as calling on the leadership, authorities of higher institutions of learning to remove arbitrary sundry charges. As a youth parliamentarian, what have you gathered from your interaction with other young people as to what they have actually been experiencing since the removal of petrol subsidy?
Yes, so I think we did, the level of the parliament, we had 1 or 2 surveys specifically to these issues as well, the petrol removal subsidy, and of course the Student Loan Act. And I think that a few things that we as young people, as students, are still communicating with the President is that, on issues that affect young people need to be at the table. We've talked about the Loan Act, which is a fantastic direction to improve the chances of, young people being able to have access to education as well. And we are looking at the special committee that was created, or whatever strategy that the Ministry of Education needs to adopt for the implementation of such strategy. So I think what is best is that it is good that the president has removed all restrictions. I think it makes it easier for young people or students at all, even those who were out of school in the first place, to come on board to be able to access those loans. In order to ensure that it is effective, the Ministry of Education and other government parastatals need to set up an advisory board where young people who are the beneficiary of this can continue to advise in the implementation, give feedback and the impact of such loan act if we want it to be effective. And it's also important that government agencies and parastatals in these education sectors also look at other members of the communities. I know of several platforms that already give loans to young people for education. We are aware of several platforms that are involved in talent recruiting, helping young people to get an access job. So government has to be part of the process all through, from the access to loan, the graduation, and ensuring that young people who access this loan are able to get jobs so that they can pay back the loan that they've gotten from government. This way you can have that the loan act itself, or that such policy, becomes very, very effective. And also the issues of universities, jumping on this opportunity to skyrocket the school fees. It just shows to some of the things that our education system needs to have in check. In as much as each university with this new Student Loan Act is free to come up with its own school fees, it has to be in reality to what is expected to be standard. So it is right, and it is very good that the president has mentioned that fact that university institutions rather must come to the table and be realistic with what the school fees for each of the school is what should be stated for each universities.
Okay, let's bring in Hamzat very quickly. Quite a number of initiatives, the president announced on Monday. He talked about 200,000 metric tons of grains being made available to families across the country, fertilizer, seedlings, and all of those. How much impact, really, do you see these make in the lives of the average citizens who are meant to benefit?
Well, if this palliative that the government, the president have rolled out, if it's effectively implemented, then this would really help cushion the effects of the impact of inflation and removal of fuel subsidy. And I like the fact that he's pumping in about 75 billion to MSMEs. This is really great, and it shows that his policy around micro and medium scale enterprise is unique. We know that if this money is circulated in the economy, it will really help ensure that jobs are sustained, but most importantly, government can get revenue from these jobs, and young people would have access to opportunity, and then there will be growth in our economy. So the grains that are going to be released, the fertilizer would also help, because we know the right now is winning season, and this will come handy to ensure that these farmers will be able to get their yield and take to the market and make income. So I think it's really timely, and I'm really glad the president was very specific and clear. And this also makes it easy for civil society to hold him to account. But I think it's important that the duty bearers, that's the MDAs that are going to roll out this initiative, are able to do it very effectively and efficiently, and leave no leakages or any form of diversion.
Talking about leakages, that's quite profound, because the president mentioned that 1 trillion naira has so far been saved, from the removal of petrol subsidy, and that's just in 2 months. Just imagine how much more the government would be able to save going forward. But then let's talk about monitoring to ensure, just as you have said, there are no leakages and no, further siphoning by, unscrupulous elements in the system.
Yeah, I think it's great. And if you listen to the president, he said we cannot allow a few people control the wealth of, over 200 million people. And he wants to ensure that our collective wealth are equitably distributed so that there will be fairness and justice. And I think this is great. And this sends a strong message to mischief makers and people who have milked the country over the years. And I know that before the end of this year, we might likely save over 3 trillion naira. But also we need to make more investment in primary health care and education. Yes, it's great that we have student loan, but we need to focus on primary education, which is the fundamental and the background of every child. So primary education, secondary education needs to be focused on, because students from poor or low-income households drop out of school after junior secondary education. So savings from fuel subsidy needs to go to primary health care and also education. And I believe that once our ministers are cleared and they're sworn into office, they can hit the ground running, because the president has set the tone already, and he has made policy pronouncement. He has made his communications clear to the Nigerian people. And I know civil society like myself would be following through to hold him to account and also ensure effective implementation.
CEO Connected Development Code, Hamzat Lawal, thank you for talking to us on TVC News at 1.
Thank you for having me.
And finally to you, Azeezat, I'm curious as to what the position of the parliamentarians is regarding the NLC's planned industrial action, which should kick off tomorrow, Wednesday, because, of course, when a strike like this happens, it should affect all sectors, and that includes the education sector. So what are your concerns? Are you in support of this? What are you doing?
Certainly not, because I think that while we are facing this hard period, we don't want a total cumbering of our economic system. And it is important that people are at work, people are doing what they're supposed to do, and we have a running economy. And I think that what is best is that the president, since onset, it is the first time that we're having the president constantly engaging, citizens, constantly engaging different sectors of the country as well. And I think that what would be best for NSC is to also sit again with the president and table out what is achievable immediately to mitigate the impact of these new policies while we await a substantial improvement in the economy. I, for one, I am in support on some of the policies that the president has dished out, and I think that one of the ways in which we could, maintain the status quo for the country is to look at opportunities for the federal government to give concessions in various sectors of the economy. So what do I mean? We have employers of labors to which naturally would pay tax to the federal government. In this regard, where we are looking for a situation whereby the federal government needs to maintain employment, we don't want companies or employers of labors to lay off staff because of the recent economic policies. So you have a situation where the government is partnering with companies and other employers of labors to give concessions whereby they can maintain their staff, or they can increase the salary of some staff members that needs their salaries to be increased for them to cope with the economic situation. In regards as well, the NSC is asking for a salary increment. And I think that what the government can do immediately now is to review the salaries of civil servants or members who are or public servants, as the case might be, and look at those who are below the float line, who will need assistance or increment in salary for them to be able to cope with the economic situation. I think that NLC can sit again with the presidency and then review some of these gradual phases to which the government can also agree with, and then in time we have a gradual improvement in the economy. If we all go on strike, the effect, especially I think earlier this morning I had a member of the medical residents as well on the show as well, speaking to this effect as well.
Okay, you can go on and on with this, but then this is actually one of the issues that the president addressed in his broadcast, talking about the fact that, as the days progress, the resolutions will be reached on the appropriate increment for the minimum wage, and that would be implemented. Thank you very much for talking to us, Speaker, Nigerian Youth Parliament, Dr. Azeezat Yishawu. Thank you again.